Aloha, this is section 11.5, which is trigonometric ratios. So I'm just going to give a quick basic introduction to trigonometry. There's a lot more detail to it, but I'm just going to do a simple one for you guys, so it'll be quick. There's three basic ratios we're going to learn is sine, cosine, and tangent, and you can see the shortcut is sine, cosine, and tangent here. If you remember, a ratio is a fraction, so that's why you're going to have a fraction here. And these ratios only work with right triangles. Okay, so the term you want to remember for these trigonometric ratios is SOHCAHTOA. Okay, so SO stands for sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse. So sine is the opposite leg over the hypotenuse, the length of it. Okay, for cosine is its adjacent over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over the hypotenuse. Okay, and then the tangent is opposite over adjacent, so the tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. That's the basic thing you need to know, and I'll explain it when we use numbers on the triangle over there. So I'll move it this way where you can see it. So here's our triangle. The hypotenuse will always be the hypotenuse no matter what. The hypotenuse will always be across from the 90 degrees or the slanted line. Okay, these are the two legs. Hypotenuse will always be hypotenuse no matter where you go from, which angle you go from. But if I ask for sine of A, that means I'm using this vertex there. And now the opposite and the adjacent go according to the A. So adjacent to A is the one next to it. Adjacent means next to. Opposite is the one, the leg that's opposite of the angle. So this is the opposite of A. Okay, so when I do sine of A over here, I want the opposite over the hypotenuse. So my opposite is 3, my hypotenuse is 5, so the sine of A is just 3 over 5. Okay. The cosine of A is the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So I want my adjacent over the hypotenuse, so it's 4 over 5. And the tangent of A is opposite over adjacent, so I want opposite over adjacent, so it's 3 over 4. Okay. But if I asked for C, so if I said sine of C, by the way, they would never do B. Okay, they're not going to ask you for sine or cosine tangent of B. But if I ask for sine of C, now I'm going from this angle, and so the hypotenuse still stays the hypotenuse. But now this becomes my adjacent of C, and this becomes my opposite of C because it's opposite and this one is next to it. So when I do sine of C, I want opposite of hypotenuse. So I want opposite over hypotenuse, it becomes 4 over 5. The cosine of C is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, which is 3 over 5. And the tangent of C is opposite over adjacent, so it's 4 over 3. Okay? So you can kind of see some similarities. The sine of A is equal to the cosine of C. And that's because the opposite of A is equal to the adjacent of C. Okay. And then in the same way, the cosine of A is equal to the sine of C because the adjacent and opposite, again, are the same. And then you can see the relationship between the two tangents. They are inverses of each other or reciprocals of each other. Okay, so that's pretty simple how to do trigonometric ratios. The one more thing I wanted to show you was how to use the calculator. So I have sine of 46. Okay, so what you want to do is, if you, depending what kind of calculator you have, if you have one of these, you can see the sine, cosine, and tangent button. So in this case, you would hit 46 and just hit the sine button. And you can see it's 0.71933998. For almost everybody who does trigonometric ratios, they go to the nearest 10,000ths, which is the fourth decimal. So in this case, I would get it's 0.71933. So I look at the fifth one and I need to round it. So it just becomes 0.7193. So the sine of 46 is 0.7193. If you happen to have this type of calculator, the TI-30X, you can see the sine cosine here. But in the other one, you have to hit 46 sine. This one, you actually have to hit the sine first so that you can see the sine there. Okay, trying to get the angle. And then you put the 46 inside of the parentheses. And you don't have to really close the parentheses, but then you have to hit the equal sign. So once you hit the equal sign, then you get the same answer. Okay, 0.719338. And then you round it off. Okay, so that's how you use the calculators. Again, round it off to the nearest fourth decimal. Hope this helps. Take care.